My fingers trembled as I tightened the last knot of the rope. My grandfather screamed, begging, but his words didn't reach me. I was somewhere else, in a dimension where only justice mattered. The lighter felt heavy in my hand, as if it carried the weight of years of humiliation, pain, and silence. When the flame touched the fuse, I felt no remorse. I felt only that, for the first time in my entire life, I had control. The blast echoed through the empty house, followed by a silence I will never forget. In that moment, my grandfather understood exactly what it felt like to experience unimaginable pain. And I just watched. My name is Ronald. I'm 23 years old, and I got out of juvenile detention 8 months ago. Yes, you read that right. I spent 4 years of my life locked up because of what I did to my grandfather. And before you close this video, judging just another monster who appears on the internet, let me ask you something. Listen to my complete story from the beginning, the real beginning. Because what was in the newspaper, what people commented, what my own family said about me, none of that tells the real story. Nobody wanted to know what happened to me during 16 years of life. Nobody asked why a quiet kid who got good grades and helped around the house suddenly did what I did. I'm not a psychopath. I'm not a criminal who woke up one day and decided to do evil. I'm someone who was broken piece by piece, year after year, until nothing was left but rage. And when you understand what I went through, maybe you won't forgive me, but at least you'll understand. What I did to my grandfather was brutal, it was calculated, it was something no human being should do to another. But there's a reason, there's always a reason. I was 16 years old when it happened. Today at 23, I look back and clearly see the path that led me to that moment. It was a long, painful path, made of silences that nobody wanted to break and screams that nobody wanted to hear. My grandfather is alive, technically, but he was never the same again. And you know what? Neither was I. The difference is that I paid for what I did. He never paid for what he did to me. Before continuing, I need to know if you're really paying attention to me. If you're really following my story, like this video now, subscribe to Traumatic Accounts, turn on notifications, because there will be many stories like mine here. And tell me in the comments where you're watching from, what city, what state, or country. I need to know there's someone on the other side really listening, because for years nobody listened to me. And if you're here genuinely interested in understanding, you're going to discover things that will completely change your view of what happened. Because what comes now, what I'm going to tell you, is the part nobody knows, the part that explains everything. I was born in Sacramento, California. My mother, Sandra, was 19 years old when she had me. My father disappeared even before I was born. I don't even know his name, to be honest. My mom was always kind of lost in life, you know? One of those people who can't get organized, who live from temporary job to temporary job, who never plan anything. When I was 4 years old, we went to live with my maternal grandparents. My grandmother, Mrs. Lorraine, was an incredible woman. Short, always with a smile on her face, gray hair pulled back in a bun. She made the best cornbread in the world and always had patience to teach me things. She was the one who taught me to read even before I started school. My grandfather, Sebastian, was different. Tall, strong, worked as a mechanic, and had a small garage in the back of the house. At first, he just seemed distant, serious, one of those men who don't show affection, but who you know are there providing caring in their own way. The first years were good. My grandmother took me to school, helped with homework, took me to the park on Sundays. My mom worked at a clothing store and came home late, so it was my grandmother who took care of me most of the time. My grandfather worked a lot, stayed in the garage until late, but on weekends sometimes he'd take me along and teach me about cars. I liked those moments, the smell of grease, the sound of tools. Everything changed when I was 8 years old. My grandmother discovered she had cancer. It was fast. In 6 months, she went from a cheerful woman full of life to a fragile shadow lying in a hospital bed. I remember visiting her and not recognizing that person anymore. Her hair had fallen out. Her skin was yellowed, her eyes sunken. But the smile. Her smile was still there when she saw me. She died on a Sunday morning. I was at school when it happened. When I got home, my mom was crying in the kitchen, and my grandfather was locked in his room. Nobody explained to me properly what had happened. They simply told me that Grandma had gone away. It was at the wake that I really understood, seeing that closed casket, people crying, the flowers. I was 8 years old and my world had ended. After the funeral, the house changed completely. My mom started working even more, doing double shifts to help with the bills. She left at 7 in the morning and came back at 11 at night. I was left alone with my grandfather. At first, he just ignored me. He'd come home from work, heat up something to eat, go to the garage or watch TV. He didn't talk to me, didn't ask about school, nothing. It was as if I were invisible. I was 9 years old when the first strange thing happened. I had accidentally broken a glass in the kitchen. I was trying to get water, and the glass slipped from my hand. My grandfather appeared in the kitchen doorway with an expression I had never seen, pure rage. He didn't yell. That was the scariest part. He simply walked up to me, grabbed me by the arm so hard it left a mark, and dragged me to the room. He locked me in there and said I was going without dinner for being incompetent and useless. I stayed locked up all night. I could hear him watching TV in the living room, the sound of football, and there I was alone in the dark, hungry and scared. My mom only arrived at dawn and didn't even know what had happened. From there, things got worse. My grandfather started punishing me for anything. I got a failing grade in math. Punishment. I forgot to wash the dishes. Punishment. I made noise while he was watching TV. Punishment. The punishments varied. Sometimes it was being locked in the room. Other times it was kneeling on rice in the kitchen for hours. Other times it was getting beaten with a belt, and always came accompanied by words that hurt more than any blow. You're useless. Your mother should have aborted you. You're dead weight in this house. Nobody likes you, not even your own mother. I tried to tell my mom a few times, but she was always tired, always running, always with other problems. And the few times I managed to say something, she simply said, "Ronald, your grandfather is stressed. He lost his wife. You need to behave better and not cause trouble." It was as if it was my fault, as if I deserved it. At school, I started closing myself off. I had some classmates, but they weren't real friends. I never brought anyone home because I was ashamed. Ashamed of my grandfather, ashamed of my situation, ashamed of myself. At 11 years old, I tried to talk to the school counselor. I asked to talk to her during recess and told her my grandfather hit me. She listened to me with that pitying face, wrote down some things, and said she was going to check on the situation. A week later, a social worker showed up at home. My grandfather opened the door with that fake smile he used with strangers, offered coffee, was super polite. The woman looked at the house, which was clean and organized, talked to me in front of him, and then left, saying everything was fine. That night, after my mom fell asleep, my grandfather came into my room. He didn't say anything, just gave me 3 belt strikes on my back and whispered in my ear, "If you open your mouth again, it's going to be much worse." I never spoke again. When I was 13 years old, my grandfather sold the garage. He said he was getting old, that he didn't have the energy anymore. With the money from the sale, he started drinking. Not every day, but frequently. And when he drank, he got worse. The beatings increased. It wasn't just the belt anymore. It was slippers. It was slaps in the face. It was kicks. And the humiliations became more cruel, more elaborate, more sick. He started making me work. I'd wake up at 5 in the morning to clean the entire house before going to school. I'd come back from school and had to cook, wash clothes, clean the yard. If something wasn't perfect, punishment came. Once I was so tired, I fell asleep in history class. The teacher woke me up in front of everyone and gave me a detention. When my grandfather saw the detention slip in my notebook, he made me stand in the yard, under the sun, from 2 in the afternoon until 6, without water, without food. I passed out. I woke up with my mom throwing water on my face, desperate. My grandfather said I was being dramatic and that I had drunk water in secret. At 14, I no longer recognized the boy I had been. I'd look in the mirror and see someone faded, without life in their eyes, without hope. My school classmates stopped trying to interact with me. I was the weird one, the quiet one, the one who was always alone. It was at that time that I discovered something that changed everything. I was cleaning my grandfather's room. Yes, I had to clean his room too, when I found a shoebox under the bed. Inside were letters, old letters from when my grandmother was alive. I started reading without really understanding. They were letters from her to him, written during the period she was in the hospital. In one of them, shortly before she died, she wrote, "Sebastian, promise me you'll take care of Ronald. He's just a child. Don't let him suffer. Please, be the grandfather I know you can be. Promise me." I felt something break inside me at that moment. My grandmother, on her deathbed, had asked him to take care of me. And what did he do? He turned me into his punching bag, his slave, the target of all his frustration and rage. I hid the letter in my room. I'd read it every night before sleeping, crying, imagining what it would be like if my grandmother were alive. The worst was still to come. When I was 15 years old, my grandfather started with a different kind of psychological torture. He started filming me during punishments. He said it was to show everyone what kind of ungrateful grandson he had. There were nights he'd wake me up at dawn just to yell at me. He'd make me stand still while he poured out all kinds of insults, filming everything with his cell phone, laughing. "Look at you, pathetic. Your father abandoned you because he saw you were worthless. Your mother pretends she likes you but can barely stand to look at you. I'm the only one who puts up with you in this house and you can't even be useful." He'd make me repeat things. I am useless. I am a burden. I don't deserve love. And he'd film everything, laughing as if it were the funniest thing in the world. One night, drunk, he forced me to kneel in the yard for 3 hours while it rained. I got sick with a high fever. My mom was desperate, took me to the emergency room. The doctors asked what had happened. I said I had fallen in the street. My mom looked at me with relief as if she were grateful I had lied. It was at that moment that I realized. My mom knew. She always knew. She just pretended not to see because it was easier, because my grandfather paid the bills, because she didn't want confrontation, because I was expendable. I started having suicidal thoughts. I thought about throwing myself in front of a car. I thought about taking pills. I thought about just disappearing and nobody missing me. But then something changed. At 16, I started feeling rage, not sadness, not despair, pure rage boiling that took over my chest and wouldn't let me breathe. I'd look at my grandfather and no longer saw an adult, an authority. I saw a coward, a pathetic man who took out his frustrations on a defenseless child because he didn't have the courage to deal with his own pain. And I realized something important. I was growing. I was almost the same size as him. In a few months, I'd be bigger, stronger, and he was getting old, slow, weak. The fear I had always felt started to transform. It wasn't fear of him anymore. It was he who should be afraid of me. I started planning, not consciously at first. They were just fantasies. I imagined him suffering, imagined him begging, imagined him feeling a fraction of the pain he caused me for so many years. But the fantasies kept getting more detailed, more specific, more real. I researched on the internet about attacks, about vulnerable points of the human body, about ways to cause maximum pain. I'd spend hours watching videos, reading forums, absorbing information. My grandfather didn't notice anything. He continued treating me like trash, humiliating me, beating me. But I no longer reacted like before. When he yelled, I just stared. When he hit me, I didn't cry, and that made him even more irritated, which resulted in worse punishments. But I endured it because I knew that soon, very soon, it would be my turn. The final trigger happened 2 weeks before my 16th birthday. My mom had gotten a better job with fixed hours. She started staying home more, seeing me more. And finally, she witnessed it. She came home early one day and saw me kneeling on rice in the kitchen with my grandfather yelling at me, drunk. She saw the belt marks on my arms, saw my face swollen from a slap I had gotten earlier. I looked at her with hope that this time she would do something, that she would defend me, that she would be my mother. You know what she did? She turned and went back to her room, closed the door. And it was at that moment that I decided. There was no salvation, no help, no justice. If I wanted it to end, I would have to end it with my own hands. The following days were the strangest of my life. I was calm, cold, focused. It was as if a part of me had shut down and only the logical, calculating part remained. I observed my grandfather's routine. He'd wake up at 8, have coffee, go to the living room to watch TV. At 3 p.m. sometimes, he'd go out to buy whiskey at the corner liquor store. He'd come back, drink, sleep on the couch until dinner time. My mom worked from 8 to 6. Tuesdays and Thursdays, she stayed later because of meetings. I chose a Thursday, 3 days after that episode where my mom abandoned me once again. I left school early, pretended I had a stomachache. I went back home and went straight to my room. My grandfather was in the living room already starting to drink. I waited. At 5:30 p.m., as always, he fell asleep on the couch with the bottle almost empty on the coffee table. It was time. I went downstairs in silence. My heart was beating, but my hands were steady. I had planned every detail for days. I knew exactly what to do. I got the ropes I had hidden under my bed, thick, resistant ropes that I had stolen from the garage. He was snoring on the couch, looked pathetic, small, vulnerable. I tied his hands first. He moved, confused, starting to wake up. When he realized what was happening, his eyes widened. "Ronald, what are you doing? Let go now, boy." I didn't respond, just continued tying his legs. He started screaming, struggling, but he was drunk and I was determined. In less than 2 minutes, he was completely immobilized. I dragged him through the house to the backyard. He screamed, cursed, threatened, said he was going to kill me, that I was crazy, that he was going to put me in jail. I just worked methodically, calmly. "Ronald, for God's sake, let me go. I'm your grandfather. What are you doing?" It was when he said that I finally spoke. "You're my grandfather." Funny, because a grandfather should care, protect, love. You know what Grandma asked me before she died? For you to take care of me. And what did you do? You turned me into a punching bag, humiliated me, broke me. Ronald, I was suffering. Her death left me. Everyone suffers, I yelled for the first time. Everyone loses people. That doesn't give you the right to destroy a child. I was 8 years old when she died. 8. And you spent the last 8 years of my life torturing me. He started crying, begging, saying he was sorry, that he would change, that he would never hurt me again. But it was too late. Years too late. I had bought fireworks, the big ones, the mortar type, that explode with force. I had 6 of them hidden for days waiting for this moment. I prepared everything and then looked at him. You know how many times I thought about killing myself because of you? How many nights I cried alone in my room, wishing my life would end? You stole my childhood, my adolescence, my sanity. Please, Ronald, don't do this. I'm old. You're going to feel pain. You're going to feel what I felt, but a concentrated version. And when it's over, you're going to live, but you'll never forget. You'll never be the same, just like I'll never be. What I did in the following minutes, I'm not going to describe in detail, not because I'm ashamed, but because even I can't fully process it. It was as if someone else was in control of my body. I tied the fireworks, lit the fuse. His screams were inhuman. I never heard anything like it. It was pure terror, pure pain, pure despair. When it was all over, he was in shock, trembling, in a state I had no words to describe. I called an ambulance from a payphone on the street without identifying myself and went back home. The police arrived with the ambulance. My mom arrived half an hour later. I was sitting in the living room, calm, waiting. I didn't try to run. I didn't deny anything. When the officer asked me if it had been me, I just said, "Yes, it was me, and if you want to know why, open an investigation into what he did to me for 8 years." I was arrested that night. I was 16 years old. The trial was quick. They tried to prosecute me as an adult because of the brutality of the act, but my lawyer, a public defender who really cared, managed to keep it in juvenile court. During the investigation, they finally discovered everything. Neighbors testified that they had heard screams coming from our house for years. The school had records of warnings and signs of abuse that were ignored. They found the marks on my body, old and new, and they found the videos on my grandfather's cell phone, hours of footage of him humiliating me, psychologically torturing me. My mother testified, cried on the witness stand, and admitted she knew, that she always knew, but that she was afraid to confront my grandfather because she depended on him financially. My grandfather survived. He was left with permanent and severe disabilities, needs constant care, but he survived. I was sentenced to 4 years in juvenile detention, closed regime the first 2 years, semi-open afterwards. Life in there was complex. There were other boys with similar stories, domestic violence, abuse, neglect. We formed a strange group, victims who became aggressors. None of us were innocent, but none of us were simply evil. I also did therapy, lots of therapy. A psychologist named Dr. Helen worked with me for 3 years. She didn't judge me, but she also didn't justify me. She made me face what I did, process, understand. "Ronald," she told me once, What your grandfather did to you was horrible, unforgivable, but what you did to him was too. Two truths can exist at the same time. You were a victim, and you were an aggressor. Your healing will come when you can accept both. It took me years to understand that. I got out at 22, but continued going to the center to finish the resocialization program. I got a job at a supermarket. I started taking GED classes to finish high school. I live in a small rented room, but it's mine. Nobody hits me. Nobody humiliates me. My mom tried to get close again. I didn't want to. Some wounds are too deep. She failed me when I needed her most, and that's something I can't forgive, at least not now. My grandfather is in a nursing home. I never spoke to him again, and I don't intend to. I don't feel satisfaction with his suffering, but I also don't feel guilt. It's strange. It's empty. I think a lot about what happened. If I would do it differently today, honestly, I don't know. The person I was at 16, destroyed, without hope, without a future. She did what she thought was necessary to survive, to regain some control. Was it right? No. Was it understandable? Maybe. Was it justifiable? That question haunts me every night. Dr. Helen told me something I never forgot. Justice and revenge are different things. Justice restores. Revenge only perpetuates the cycle of violence. What you did was revenge, and revenge never brings peace. She was right. I don't have peace. I have sleepless nights. I have nightmares where I relive everything, the abuse I suffered and what I did. I wake up sweating, trembling, but I also have something I didn't have before. Freedom, not just physical, but internal. I no longer live in fear. I no longer feel small, helpless. The cycle ended with me. I refuse to perpetuate violence. I refuse to be like my grandfather. Therapy, time, reflection, all of this helped me understand that I can be different. Today I work, I study, I live. I'm not happy in the traditional sense, but I'm functional. And considering where I came from, that's already a victory. If you made it this far and understood what I went through, if you really care about my story, I need you to do something for me. Like this video, subscribe to Traumatic Accounts, turn on notifications, because stories like mine need to be told, need to be heard. And tell me in the comments what time it is where you are right now while you're watching this. I need to know that even in the early morning, even in the middle of the day, there are people willing to hear the complete truth, not just what appears in the headlines. I'm not asking you to forgive me. I'm not asking you to understand me completely. I'm just asking you to think about how many children are suffering right now. How many Ronalds are out there being broken day after day and nobody doing anything? The system failed me, my family failed me, society failed me. And when I exploded, when I retaliated, then everyone wanted to judge me. But where were they when I needed help? Where were they when I was silently begging for salvation? I'm not a hero. I'm not a perfect victim. I'm complex, flawed, broken. But I'm human. And my story, as disturbing as it may be, is real. Sometimes I still get that letter from my grandmother, the one I found hidden years ago. I read her words, asking my grandfather to take care of me, and I cry. Not from anger, from sadness. Sadness for what could have been, and never was. I could have had a normal adolescence. I could have had friends, relationships, happy memories. I could have had a grandfather who loved me, but I didn't. And the person I could have been died along with my grandmother in that hospital. What remained was this version of me, scarred, trying to build something from scratch. And you know what? I'm going to make it. Not for my grandfather, not for my mother, for me, because I survived. And survivors have this strange stubbornness to keep living, even when everything says we should have given up. This is my story, my truth. Inconvenient, disturbing, without a happy ending, but real.